Hey everyone, welcome to another New York Mets franchise mode game 12 today. After a pretty good game 11, a nice all-around win, good defense, good enough hitting, able to put up 10 runs, and the pitching was pretty good for the most part. Didn't necessarily have them claw right back into the game like I normally do, but the Houston Astros are done. Let's go up against the Milwaukee Brewers and Freddie Peralta with Marcus Stroman on the mound, going to Miller Park out there in Milwaukee. And you know what? This is going to be a pretty interesting matchup as it's absolutely terrible weather out there right now. So we're going to go with that. See how the lineup looks as far as energy is concerned. I don't really see anything too glaring. I mean, the thing most important to me is catcher, and Wilson Ramos looks really rested. Rosie looks okay to me, Conforto, so let's hop right into it. But the reason why this is an important matchup, I think when we look at what happened last year, and you look at what's happening so far in this virtual season, the Milwaukee Brewers are 8-3 right now, so they have a better record than I do. But just the way that, obviously, in the second half, when the Mets were making their run, all everybody talked about was the wild card. The wild card. Can the Mets make the wild card? How many games do they have to win? Who has to lose? What do they have to do to make it? And it was just like, oh, well, you know what? They're chasing the Brewers. If the Brewers lose some games, that would help out the Mets. And that didn't happen enough. And the other thing is that, like, capitalizing on it. The days that the Brewers actually lose, you have to win. And you can't really lose on days that the Brewers win. So it's very hard to rely on something like that. You could only control your destiny so much. So then it's like what you have to do is win the head-to-head matchups, which the Mets did a terrible job of last year. The Milwaukee Brewers gave them so much trouble, more trouble than most other teams did. And a lot of the games came early in the season. I mean, they were in May, and we know that the Mets improved as the season progressed, especially in the second half, whether it was July or August. And you know what? The Brewers didn't face them then, but still, it's just like, you know what? Had you won a couple games here in May in those series against Milwaukee, you might have been in a better situation when it comes to September. So the thing that really stood out to me, and honestly, the Milwaukee Brewer games, especially the ones in Miller Park early, were some of the more frustrating games of the entire season to me because of how the Mets got completely shut down late in games by Josh Hader. I thought that was just a big-time embarrassment, honestly, from the Mets. Yes, we know that Josh Hader is a very good reliever, one of the best relievers in all of baseball, definitely in the National League. But here's the thing, Josh Hader had a bit of a down year last year. I mean, it's hard to replicate what he did originally, but still, it's not like he was untouchable for the entire season. It's not like, oh, well, you know what, that's Josh Hader, so no matter what, you're not going to have a chance. I mean, that's not the case. Of course, I got a perfect to still get out, but to me, it's just like the way the Mets, like, they couldn't put together anything. Like, they were completely lost. And, I mean, he really just mowed them down. And it's a big problem for the Mets when you, again, another good timing, but you lose to a pitcher, a relief pitcher in particular, where it's just like you're really at a disadvantage because we know that that's where the Mets lose games, is late in the game, going to the bullpen. The Mets bullpen is not what they specialize in. So the fact that you go up against a team where it's like, okay, well, we got to their bullpen, but their bullpen shutting us down, it's just not a good matchup at all. And it's why the Mets had a lot of trouble against the Brewers last season. But you know what? There's more than just having a lockdown reliever in Josh Hader. It's also having a tough out in Lorenzo Cain. Having one of the best players in the league in Christian Yelich, a guy who is, you know, right there for the MVP. And just having a lot of nice pieces all around on the team. So, you know what? I do think that because of how important the wild card is, and obviously the Mets division is not going to be easy considering that the Atlanta Braves have won it back-to-back times. And like I always say, you have the defending champs in the world in Washington Nationals. So, you know what? If the Mets do want to make the playoffs, it's most likely going to be the wild card. And the Brewers, they haven't gotten much worse, so they're going to be in your way again. So I think it's very important that if the Mets do end up facing the Brewers, and this is very early in the season, I mean, think of where we are. We are April 9th, and it's our first game against Milwaukee. So, again, it's very early in the season, similar to last year. But you don't want the same thing to happen. You want to do better against them. This way, come September, you're in a much better situation. And we talk about the differences in the Mets, how the Brewers, they faced them in May, and the Mets kind of became a different team as the season progressed. And one of the ways they did that is the guy on the mound right now, Marcus Stroman. Marcus Stroman was not on the Mets when they faced the Brewers. So we'll see how that dynamic ends up helping. Will Marcus Stroman pitch a good game against the Brewers? I sure hope he does it today for me. But will he do it in those head-to-head matchups? I think that's something that we don't know yet. Not off to a great start right now. He's not finding spots, and I have Christian Yelich on deck, so I definitely do not want to walk Orlando Arcia in front of Yelich. That would just not be a good game plan at all. All right, 3-2 from Stroman. Hangs right over the middle, and I don't know why JD wanted to go slow motion and not go back and catch that ball, so of course it's an error. And of course, we're off to a bad start defensively. Right back to normal. But I think I'm like doing it on purpose, just letting guys purposely not catch fly balls. But I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to back up, but I mean, JD, I never even seen that before, honestly. In all the years I've been playing MLB The Show, I've never seen somebody go back as slow and like nonchalantly as JD Davis did right there on that play. And that just really stunk because that should have been the end of the inning right there, but it continues. Interesting that they have Freddie Peralta in the Milwaukee Brewers rotation in MLB The Show. I mean, he's a guy who kind of did both a little bit. You know, he started some games. He also came out of the bullpen some. And the Milwaukee Brewers, I mean, they've been a very interesting team. They've been one of those teams that really revolutionized with Craig Counsell as their manager of this whole idea of having bullpen games, particularly in the postseason. I mean, we saw them do that 2 years ago. You know, obviously last year they got bounced in the wild card game, which they blew with Josh Hader on the mound, and of course the play with Gresham in right field, and he gets traded. But just still, the Milwaukee Brewers, they're one of those teams that really embrace this idea of a bullpen game. And so it's just always tricky for any of their starting pitchers, somebody like Freddie Peralta, who's kind of had to do both. They're a very, unorthodox team, but pretty soon it could kind of be common practice when you think of how more and more teams are doing this kind of thing with maybe the Tampa Bay Rays with an opener, and now you heard that maybe the Mets would do an opener with Steven Matz, and we've seen the Yankees do it. And then speaking of the Yankees, that Game 7 was 2 bullpen games for both teams in a Game 7. I mean, when do you think you would ever see that in a Game 7 of a championship series in baseball, 2 bullpen games? It sounds crazy, but that's the way baseball has evolved. I mean, we talk about it in a lot of these videos, but it's a sport that has changed so much, and it will continue changing. Here's a 1-2 from Stroman.
I got the count. 2-2.
2-2. So, I mean, I talked about it in I don't know if it was Marcus Stroman's last start or 2 starts ago, whatever it was, but I talked about him, posting videos and saying how good he is. And I said that this is going to be an important year for him because, number one, he has an expiring year of his deal, so he has to really prove himself that he is a consistent pitcher because he has had his up years and down years, and if he wants to get paid like the pitcher he thinks he is, he really has got to perform well. And for the Mets, it's also important that he does well since he is elevated a spot in the rotation due to the Syndergaard injury. He is now going to be asked to be the guy who backs up Jacob deGrom. You know what I mean? deGrom throws these gems, and then what happens after that? How does the rest of the rotation hold up? So it's going to be up to Marcus Stroman to really fill in for that role after Jake. And the other thing is that, like, Stroman continues to post these videos, whether he's on the beach or he's, I don't know, on the street in Florida or somewhere where he's throwing these bullpens and all these amazing camera views of his stuff and saying, oh, I'm working out. And see, why is JD doing this again? What is this? I don't know why he keeps doing that. But still, Marcus Stroman's showing all these different videos and pitching, whatever. So it's like, to me, he's just adding more pressure for him to pitch well, because it's like if he does it, we have all this stuff that we could say like, oh, well, what about these videos you posted and all these captions you had about these tweets and all these little different things. That's like, oh, well, you said that you were feeling better than ever and all this stuff. So I don't know. I'm very on the fence about him, because it's not like I'm just going to buy whatever he's selling, because he wasn't amazing as a Met. I mean, at first he was not good at all, got a little better, but still not lights out. So it's going to take more than some little videos to impress me. I really got to see it in the real thing. And I remember one of the spring training games I saw him pitch, not in person, obviously on TV, was when they were facing the Cardinals. I think it was that ESPN game where they had the players mic'd up. And in that first inning, Marcus Stroman, I mean, he had like no control. He's walking batters again. And I mean, that's the same thing that happened to him when he first got to the Mets. And that start that always pops up to mind is that one against the Nationals, which was a really big game that Friday night. So he definitely still has more to prove, to me at least. I was lucky I reached on that error with McNeil, but at least I put the ball in play. I mean, that's one of the things I like about Jeff McNeil and why I always talk about putting the ball in play is because you allow things like that to happen where, you know what, instead of striking out, you hit a routine ground ball, but a routine ground ball doesn't get completed 100% of the time. I mean, there is that little chance where the second baseman could, you know, mess up and all of a sudden you're on base, whereas like a strikeout, it's a strikeout every time, unless the catcher drops it and then, you know, rolls to the backstop and maybe you can reach first base, but still, even that is not as likely. But I just like, as P. Alonso draws a walk, we have the bases loaded with nobody out, but still, I just think that there's a higher chance for the defense to mess up if you put the ball in play than you strike out. And Robbie Cano hits a very, at first it seemed kind of shallow, but had some good distance on it. That would be a sacrifice fly, bring Jeff McNeil home, and the Mets go in front 1-0 on the Robbie Cano sacrifice fly. On the ground, that one just gets through the whole base hit. Oh, that was big right there because that could have been an inning double play. Instead, it extends the inning and gets us an RBI single. That changeup hit on the ground. They're going to tag the runner, and oh my gosh. That should have worked because what I was doing is I had the runner coming home. He was going to score. I wanted the runner to stay at second, and it would have just been a run and 2 outs, not inning over, double play. And here I was saying, oh, wild pitch gets rid of the double play possibility. But it's just like, again, it is so hard to control multiple runners at the same time, getting one to advance while having one stay. Oh, man, that was really going to work, too. That should be an extra run. And the inning should have kept going. Instead, we just completely bailed Peralta out, who was having a terrible inning. That's a hanging slider for Arcia, and it's out of here. It's so hard to locate in this game. And I don't understand why every time the road team hits a home run, they set off this huge thing of fireworks. And it's so annoying at the headset. The Astros didn't have that. The Nationals did. And obviously the Brewers do. The Mets do not. Which, good thing they didn't. Because, I mean, even if I was hitting home runs with the Mets, I could only hear so much of that fireworks sound in my ears. As Yelich flies out. Definitely would take that. That's a big out. Look at his average right now, 436. I mean, Yelich is an extremely good hitter. Interesting that they have Omar Narvaez catching for the Milwaukee Brewers after they lose Yasmani Grandal, who was big on a lot of Met fans' radar. Not so much me. I was a prisoner of the moment. I could not give Grandal a big contract after what just happened to him in the postseason when he was with the Dodgers. The way the pass balls really just, it took hold of him, and he was dropping so many pitches. And then the other big problem was that it was impacting his offense, and that he was striking out at a crazy rate. I mean, he couldn't get any hits, he couldn't catch a ball, and that was the most recent thing that happened. So I was just like, how is he just gonna turn all that off and go right back to being a good catcher again? I just thought it was too risky. And for me, when it's any sport, I really like players that could get it done in the postseason. And for me, I just didn't really get that sense from Grandal, seeing that him being in the postseason, what could happen to him, the way he could just completely fold under pressure. I was like, I don't know if this is a guy I want for me long term, because you know what? The Mets were in the World Series in 2015, and my thing is that it seems like it was long ago now, but it's not impossible to get back, especially if you have Jeff McNeil driving one to deep right field, a perfect, and it's out of here. Jeff McNeil goes upper deck for a solo home run to get us that run right back and go back ahead too. But again, I mean, I do want the Mets to get back into a World Series, so I want guys that could perform in the postseason. And for me, I wasn't actually sure if Grandal could do that. He turns out to have a really good season for Milwaukee Brewers, and then he was big for them in the wild card game, hitting that home run earlier against Max Scherzer. So your concerns about him not being so great in the postseason kind of goes out the window a little bit. And more importantly, he was able to catch and be the starting catcher for that wild card game. The Brewers weren't able to advance. We already talked about that earlier in the video. But still, it was just like, okay, well, that happened, and now since it was a one-year deal with Milwaukee, after he turned down a multi-year deal from the New York Mets, saying that he wanted to increase the AAV, average annual value, for other catchers and kind of do right by them so that all the other catchers could get more money. I don't know if I really buy that. Maybe he just did not want to be a Met, and that was his excuse of saying no. But regardless, it was like, since he took a one-year deal with the Milwaukee Brewers and he had a good year, Met fans wanted him again, and they're like, oh, well, you know what, they should get rid of Ramos and get Grandal instead. And for me, I still am not crazy about it. I mean, obviously I know that Grandal is a significantly better defensive catcher than Wilson Ramos. The thing is, the age isn't too far off, and I have a couple other things. They're both good offensive catchers, but they're good offensive catchers in different ways. Grandal is a really good power hitting catcher. He can hit you his home runs. He's a switch hitter, and we know what he could do there. But Ramos is more of a contact hitter, a guy who could put the ball in play, drive runners in when they're on base, hit for a higher average. And for me, as I've said a bunch, but you know I value that more, so I would rather have a catcher that puts the ball in play, drives runners in, hits for a high average, than another all-or-nothing home run hitter when I already have that in the guy at the plate, Pete Alonso, and I feel like you probably have that in Michael Conforto as well. So I just think for a fit purpose, also the fact that Wilson Ramos has been on the Mets for, he had a year with them, and he did well. So it's like, that can't go unnoticed, because you think of the Diaz and Cano trade, like when they got to the Mets, they weren't good. They had bad years as Mets. So there's like this thing of like, okay, well, this guy's a good player, but can he be good on the Mets? That's something that is always a huge unknown. You know what I mean? It's like some guys are good Mets and some guys are not so good Mets. And the thing is that we know Ramos can be successful as a Met. We don't know if Grandal could do that, because that was my thing. It's like, I was worried about him being able to perform under postseason pressure, but you know what? There's a lot of pressure in New York, and there's a lot of pressure in Los Angeles. So maybe a place under the radar like in Milwaukee works for him. And then the White Sox gave him an insane contract. So you talk about getting more money for catchers. He definitely accomplished that. The White Sox gave him a big payday. The White Sox gave a lot of people a lot of money. But he's going to be under the radar now. You know what I mean? I mean, the White Sox are trying their best to compete in a pretty weak division all in all, because you have the Tigers and the Royals there. They're rebuilding. Cleveland is not reloading. If anything, Cleveland is getting worse with the way they're not making any moves. In fact, just getting rid of players for salary purposes. The only real threat you have in that division other than that is the Minnesota Twins, who continue to improve. They made a big move getting Josh Donaldson. But still, I just think that base running just absolutely... Well, I'm about to enter a triple play. Hold on. I don't know what just happened right there. Okay. Anyway, I completely forgot what I was saying, because I don't know what just happened there. Again, like, I just cannot control multiple base runners at a time. I was trying to get Nimmo to score, stop Alonso at third, and stop Cano at first. It was so hard. But anyway, I still was just worried that, like, Grandal has a good year for the Brewers, and Ramos has a good year for the Mets. Then the Mets bring in Grandal, and all of a sudden he's a bad Met, and like, okay, well, you lost a good Met in Ramos. I got concerned, you know what I mean? And I like Ramos, so all in all, I think the Mets should be okay at catcher. Like I said, I still am concerned about them changing Ramos' swing, trying to get more fly balls from him. I don't want to mess him up too much, because he's been a good hitter for such a long time. So, I mean, just the whole catcher situation in general is going to be something to keep an eye on for the Mets, because the other thing is, we talk about not Ramos catchers, because that's been such a problem for the Mets. Anyone not named Wilson Ramos, I mean, they cannot hit. The combination of Tomas Nido and Rene Rivera and all the other really bad characters we've seen in recent Met history, Kevin Plawecki among others. So, I mean, all that you really have to, be mindful of. And again, that's why it's important to keep Wilson Ramos healthy, because you don't want those other catchers out there. As we get a nice RBI double from Michael Conforto in what has been the ugliest game so far. I feel like I should be up like 8-1, but with all these base running blunders, I'm making it very hard on myself. I have to be honest with you. I mean, seeing Yasmani Grandal not in that lineup anymore, this lower half of the Brewers lineup, I mean, pretty much after Yelich, it doesn't look too appealing. I mean, you have Omar Narvaez and you have Eric Sogard and Brock Holt. Not really these fearsome guys that really put fright into you. So I do wonder what's going to be like for the Brewers, because I talked about it yesterday in the Oakland Athletics draft video, was that the Cincinnati Reds, all the moves they made, I mean, who knows? Maybe they could overtake the Brewers if this bottom half of the order doesn't really produce. It just doesn't really look like a deep lineup to me. I mean, they could be, maybe some guys are hurt, maybe they're resting some guys, or for some reason, MLB The Show, they're very weird on the Rays. I hear somebody like Ryan Braun. I mean, that's much more of a household name. I guess he was getting a day off. But still, it's just like, the lineup doesn't look too great. I was talking about how the Brewers lineup just looks very different than last year and not as powerful, and that maybe the Reds are going to try to overtake them. I think a perfect example of that is them signing Mike Moustakas, and how Moustakas, you know, he was a starter for them in that wild card game, and they got a pretty big boost out of him after they had made a trade to acquire him. And you also had somebody like Eric Thames now go to the Washington Nationals. So this Milwaukee's Brewer lineup just looks a whole lot different. Obviously, they traded Trent Grisham, and they lost Yasmani Grandal in free agency. And even Yelich finished the season with a knee injury. So it's definitely going to be a weird year for Milwaukee. Renzo Kane up the middle. Rosario gets to it. Does a spin around. Oh, wow, what a play. So, I mean, that's the advantage of Rosario. He can make a flashy play, but he'll boot some routine ones. That's why he's such a tricky guy to evaluate. Cano on the ground with good timing. Slider that had a lot of play on, almost down the middle. It's a double play. Of course. 1-2 from Stroman. Struck him out. So 7 one-run ball innings from Marcus Stroman. I will definitely take it. That is a great start, because 7 is the new 9. I mean, one mistake, Orlando Arcia home run, but all in all, very good start from Marcus Stroman. As Craig Counsell is going to another pitcher. Oh my gosh, now we face Ray Black. I mean, they're just going to pitcher after pitcher. I mean, but that's the way the Brewers play. They just change guys like crazy. So at least that's realistic. Ramos drives it deep left field, and that one is out of here. A solo shot for Wilson Ramos to put the Mets up 6-1. I was able to, I like his hair, the way it looks in that angle. But I was just able to time that one really well. He's throwing it hard, so I just reacted, honestly. I saw that head plate, it wasn't going to break, so I just hit the power swing, and good things happened. So a nice shot for Wilson Ramos. Been a while since he left the ballpark. He had been hitless in this game so far, and good to see him get something done. He was all over that one, no doubt. And it got out very quickly. I mean, that was a line drive home run. I mean, 107.8 miles of velocity. Didn't go far. You know, it just got over, but counts for a run, so I'll definitely take it. We're facing a lot of lefties. I don't know. Let's bomb the order. I'm going to Wilson. I want to save Lugo for something more important. Oh, wow, the umpire gave me a call. Oh, my goodness. That's one of the worst calls I've seen all year. 0-2 from Wilson. Struck him out. Nice scoreless inning from Justin Wilson in the 8th. Only 10 pitches. Very nice. Very, very nice. That worked out perfectly. So, I'm going to have Dom Smith pitch here, but I don't know what I'm going to do for the 9th inning. Honestly, if Wilson had more stamina, I would just let him close the game. But, again, I want to save Lugo, so I'm going to have Diaz close. If Wilson was more rested, though, I would have him pitch. It's gotten to the point now where I'm just saving Lugo for the super close games. And that's what I look at. He's my best reliever. He's my reliable reliever. So I feel like I wouldn't want to waste him in a game that I really feel like I'm going to win. So I'm just going to go with these guys that are sketchy, like a Familia or Diaz or Betances. Because I don't want it to happen where I am in a close game, and it's like, oh, well, I already used Lugo in that comfortable 5-run win I had.
Count is full. 3-2.
I would hate to not have him in an important close game. But I think he's the difference maker between winning and losing. Oh, Edwin Diaz gets a call from the umpire to strike out Christian Yelich looking. Wow.
The batter, number 5. Second baseman.
I think their second baseman may have gotten hurt during the game, or I don't know what they did. I don't know how Jed Jerko ended up batting cleanup.
I got 1 ball, 1 strike.
Honestly, I think their second baseman got hurt on that ridiculous play where I had to send Nimmo back to third. Anyway, I think that second baseman got hurt on that play. That's what, because I think I saw them change their second baseman right after that, but I was so like befuddled by the whole situation of me just completely botching the whole base running that I kind of didn't really pay attention to it. 0-2 for Diaz. They're down to last strike. Struck him out. Ball game over. Put it in the books. The New York Mets win 6-1. Nice game. Easy game. I didn't rage too bad. I didn't cry and complain too bad. So that definitely is a big plus. Good all-around win. Marcus Stroman, 7 innings, 1-run ball. Justin Wilson pitched a great 8th. Diaz pitched a great 9th. We got contributions from multiple players. We had Ramos hit a home run. We had McNeil get a home run. We had Conforto get some hits. So definitely a very nice game all around. We will take, as we take the first game of this series against the Milwaukee Brewers, going up against Freddie Peralta. They went through a ton of pitchers, but all in all, you'll take the wins you can get them because they had been off to a good start this season. We saw their record was better than ours heading into this, and we are now even. So that's definitely big. Again, you have got to win these head-to-head matchups. I said in the beginning of the video, and I'm going to say it all year, whether it's in the video game or when the real Mets do start back up, I'm going to keep saying that the head-to-head matchups is so important. The true way to gain ground on another team. But you look at the box score, McNeil, the one hit the homer, Nimmo, a couple hits. Alonso drew 3 walks. So that proves my point. They have not been pitching to him lately because of all the power he has. I don't know if I need to move around the lineup or whatever, but I really got to keep an eye on that. Cano had a hit. Conforto, a couple hits, still driving in runs. JD went hitless, drew a walk. Ramos hit the home run. And Rosario went hitless with a walk and 2 strikeouts. So after 2 home runs, boom, he has a hitless game. That's what I was saying. The inconsistencies always happen. Of course, pitch at bat with Dominic Smith, I struck out. We had that one really bad play with J.D. Davis to left field early in the game where I was trying to back up and he was going so slow and just decided to drop it, so that really stunk. But again, the 7 innings from Marcus Stroman, you'll take that. Wilson and Diaz, they were really efficient in their innings. I think Edwin Diaz struck out the side, if I'm not mistaken. And then we look at the Milwaukee Brewers. I mean, they went through a ton of pitchers for this game. So, really nice win. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, leave a like button. It's the best way for me to know that you liked it. Or you can comment and say, hey, I liked the video. And don't be a bot about it. Be a sincere person and just tell me your feedback. What do you think about the game, the series, about baseball, sports, life, anything in general? Always willing to talk to you guys. Subscribe to keep up with all the content coming on within the channel. But until the next one, be safe, be smart, be healthy, and have